Welcome back to The Point. First, the BJP Ghaziabad candidate General SIngh and then the party itself formally petitioned the Election Commission to stop the UPA government appointing the next army chief. Is this a justified step or a crude attempt to bring politics into an appointment critical to the Indian Army? With me, former Defence Secretary Ajay Prasad, the Minister of Information and Broadcasting Manish Tiwari, BJP spokesperson Prakash Javadekar, and the former Deputy Chief of the Army, Lieutenant General Raj Kadian. Mr. Ajay Prasad, first the Ghaziabad candidate General SIngh, then the party itself formally demanded that the Election Commission should stop the present government from appointing an army chief. Now, the army chief's appointment is actually a routine administrative appointment, and it's happening because a vacancy is about to be created. So are they right to try and politicize it in the way they have?
I am personally of the view that, as you very rightly observed, this is a regular routine appointment on a vacancy which is being caused by superannuation of the outgoing chief. The succession is well defined in the military process. There's no political inputs are necessary in this, and I am of the view it should be treated as a regular administrative appointment without the elections having anything to do with it.
So then it follows that this petition to the Election Commission is both unnecessary and possibly unwarranted.
I personally feel it is unnecessary.
General Kadian, as a former deputy chief, how do you and how do army officers like you, both serving and retired, view the BJP's petition to the Election Commission? Do they see it as justified, or do they believe that this is an attempt to politicize the army chief selection, which should normally always be above politics?
Karan, 2 points. First of all, in our country's scenario, where there are so many divisions based on religion and caste and factionalism, army is one institution that has stood apart. It is totally apolitical. Its loyalty to the constitution has never been questioned. It will be very unfortunate if we keep dragging the army into politics. It happened with the last chief, Vikram Singh, when he was appointed. So my strong recommendation to everybody is to keep the army out. It is a dangerous trend because we have neighbors' experience.
Can I interrupt? You're therefore suggesting that the BJP has made a serious mistake?
Yes, it is a wrong step. In any case, the moral code of conduct pertains to forbidding those actions which can influence voting. How does the appointment of an army chief influence voting in any way?
Mr. Javadekar, both Mr. Ajay Prasad, the former Defence Secretary, who actually served as Defence Secretary in Mr. Vajpayee's government, and General Kadian, a former Deputy Chief, are sharply critical of your attempt to petition the Election Commission over the appointment of the next army chief and to try and therefore politicize the process. How do you defend what you've done?
See, first, it will be ignorant to say that appealing to the Election Commission, which is conducting the elections and is the supervisor of the code of conduct, one should not go and appeal. Whatever the decision it gives,
no, just a moment.
Is a different matter.
Forgive me. How does the model code of conduct? How does the model code of conduct affect in any way the selection or influence in any way the selection of the army chief? They're irrelevant.
That is 1 minute. That is precisely the Election Commission has to say. But Karan, you know, it is not only about army chief appointment. It is, see, Navy appointment, 2 months, there was no file movement, and suddenly you do it after 2 months before you leave it.
No, just a moment. You're wrong.
Right,
you're wrong. First of all, there was file movement for 2 months, which is why it took so long. And secondly, are you really seriously suggesting that the government should have left open the post of our Navy chief and not filled it? Forgive me, you're raising issues that deeply worry people.
Regularly. I'm on Defence Committee and I know that they should be filled immediately. The issue here is that government...
I'm going to interrupt you there. I'm going to interrupt you there.
For more than
Mr. Javadekar is saying that as a member of the Defence Committee, he knows that the Navy chief appointment should have been filled immediately. It happened because Admiral Joshi resigned, and resigned surprisingly without notice. Can you fill a Navy chief appointment immediately, or is he talking completely wrongly?
No, if you remember, Karan, on one of your earlier programs about the Navy chief, I had said that when the vacancy arose, government could have filled up this post quite urgently and expeditiously, but the government then chose to make a reference to the Election Commission, which to my mind was not really necessary even then. And they filled up the post after a gap of about 2 months.
What I'm asking is, can the necessary vetting and clearance, can the necessary intelligence process be done so quickly when you have a new Navy chief that you have to appoint without any notice and without any preparation?
No, admittedly there is a problem there, because there is a lot of preparatory time that goes into preparing
so Mr.
the
Javadekar
panel.
is ignoring that when he says they could have done it immediately.
No, you can't do it immediately, but you could cut short the time.
You could have done it faster, but it can't have been done immediately.
Yeah.
Manish Tiwari, on the other hand, the truth is that we are in the middle of one of the most contentious, if not one of the most vicious election campaigns. Is it fitting and proper that a government, which the polls suggest is on its way out, should undertake such a sensitive and delicate appointment at this stage? I'm talking now about the army chief appointment.
Well, I think, Karan, it is important and imperative to segregate two things. The first is possibly a speculative take which somebody may have on opinion polls. And the second thing is a routine administrative appointment which needs to be made, as the former Defence Secretary was pointing out, on the superannuation of the current incumbent. So therefore, there is a laid down procedure, there's a set procedure, which has been followed in previous cases also. So therefore, if the government does decide that we will follow the same procedure, I do not think as to why there should be an attempt to really politicize it.
Okay.
You are absolutely correct. We are in open season. There is enough, ammo going around. There are enough barbs flying around. But I would tend to agree with General Kadian that the army as an institution, a professional institution,
okay,
needs to be insulated, from the cut and thrust of the regular political discourse.
General Kadian, let's approach this matter a little differently. So far, we've been talking about whether the BJP is right or wrong in trying to politicize the appointment of the next chief. The second issue is the present Army Chief, General Bikram Singh, retires on the 31st of July. Will a new government that may not be sworn in before the 20th of May actually have enough time to go through the process that is needed to select an army chief, and secondly, to give him the conventional 2 months to work with the incumbent so that you have a smooth handover? Is there enough time for this to be left to the next government?
First of all, the processing of the files, because there is the appointments committee of the cabinet, which the committee doesn't meet. The file moves to different, their Prime Minister, the Home Minister and the Defence Minister. Each ministry takes its own time, gets clearance from maybe IB and other people so that everything is in order. That takes time, maybe 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months?
Yes.
So the actual time for just choosing the next chief is 2 to 3 months?
Yes.
And then on top of that, he has to then work with the incumbent for 2 months more?
Minimum 2 months, should be 3 months, like Bikram Singh worked for 3 months. So if 3 months is notice is to be given, then the new name should be announced on 1st of May, latest on 1st of June. The new government will come into position only later half of May. How do they process and do it on the 1st of June?
So you're saying two very important things. The time taken by the process of choosing the next army chief, and then the time required for him to work with the incumbent to ensure a smooth handover,
Absolutely,
is roughly 4 or 5 months altogether.
Yes.
In an article that you've written, you've said, the present government is not only right, but in fact is obliged to make the announcement before demitting office. What you're saying is, if UPA doesn't make the announcement, it will be irresponsibility on their part.
Yes, it will hurt the organization interest, and the government must do it. The army cannot come to a standstill because the elections are on.
That is the opinion of a former deputy chief. You've been a former defense secretary. You viewed this, therefore, from the other side of the civil-military divide in the MOD. Do you agree with that, that the process could take up to 4 or 5 months, and therefore the new government simply won't have time?
See, the convention and the practice is that 2 months before the chief, any chief, demits office, his successor is to be notified.
And how long does it take to choose the successor?
I'm coming to that. Now, obviously this 2 months period is to enable the new person to get acclimatized, work with his outgoing, the predecessor, and get familiar with all the issues.
But how much time is needed to choose him?
Now what happens is, normally the process of preparing a panel, getting the ACRs updated, looking at the various pluses and
How long is
minuses
that?
for it, It takes about 6 weeks to 2 months.
So in other words, you agree it will take 4 months altogether?
I would say minimum of 3 months is what you need to select a chief.
Minimum. And probably 4.
Probably 4.
Which suggests the new government doesn't have that much time.
What I suspect is that the process would have already begun in the defense ministry.
But the process begun by one government may not be acceptable to a different government, particularly if it's from another party.
No.
They may begin again.
No, let me put it this way, that the initial work of compilation of all this data, the material...
I need to push you because I don't want to get lost in detail. Are you agreeing with General Qadian or not that you need at least 4 months?
I would say minimum of 3 months is what.
But possibly 4.
Probably 4. But
is there enough time for the next government, therefore, to do it? Give me a sharp answer to that.
No, it is not.
That's very important. Because there is not enough time.
If you are looking at the new government, I mean the present government lasting for another month, irrespective of what political dispensation the new government takes shape, the decision would have to be taken by the new government.
Hang on a second. A moment ago you said there's not enough time for the new government. Now you're saying it has to be taken by the new government. I'm getting confused. Which are you saying?
No, what I'm saying is that...
A sharp answer, sir, because I want the audience to follow this.
What I'm saying is that there isn't enough time for this present government in this 1 month to complete all the process.
They may have already begun the process 2 months ago.
I suspect they must have begun the process.
So then there is time.
No, there isn't time.
Why?
Because what happens
is... So hang on, you're therefore saying that this government mustn't do it?
What I feel, it should be done in a regular, normal course, irrespective of the fact whether this government...
Then this government can do it. We're going around in circles, so forgive me.
No, I'm not going around in circles.
Let me bring in Mr. Javadekar because we're getting a bit confused over here with the details in studio. I want to put to you a critical fact. And the fact is this, that the last time an army chief was appointed was when General Bikram Singh was appointed to succeed General VK Singh. And then he was appointed a clear 3 months in advance. And General VK Singh had no problem with that, none whatsoever. So this time round, if the appointment happens 3 months in advance, why is General VK Singh and why is your party suddenly becoming so concerned?
To answer this question peculiar, let me tell you the total haste which is being indulged into by the government about appointments which were pending for years together.
No, let's not go off to another issue. Please answer. Mr. Javadekar, answer a specific question. This is about the army chief.
No, I want to.
Well, go ahead then.
But I want to say 2 sentences and then I will answer your question.
But say them quickly, please.
My second sentence is, so they have made PSU chiefs, bank directors and many other appointments.
Mr. Javadekar, PSU chiefs and bank directors are not the equivalent of the army chief. Let's not play tricks with our audience. An army chief is a very special appointment. He heads a force of 1.3 million. He's the only person of his type in the country. PSU chiefs, forgive me, are almost a dime a dozen. So let's come back. If the last army chief can be appointed 3 months in advance, why not the next one?
Karan, you have privy to ask your question, but I have every preview to answer the way I want it, and so you will have to bear with me for 2 sentences. The next sentence is that they are appointing even Lokpal, which will be a 5
Oh, please, Mr. Javadekar, we are going from the sublime to the ridiculous.
1 minute. All appointments have to be viewed in the year. So, if you are discussing only technical issues about army appointments, it becomes a very limited discourse.
I have a feeling, Mr. Javadekar, that you either are deliberately prevaricating and filibustering, or despite your membership of the Defence Committee, you don't seem to understand the importance of the subject we are talking about.
You will not decide. You will not decide, Election Commission will decide.
All right, yes, of course the Election Commission will decide, but we have a right to debate, we have a right to discuss, we have a right to comment on what your party has done at election time, and that's the prerogative we're exercising.
You are not allowing me to discuss wider context.
Well, no, you're widening the context so far as to lose focus altogether. That's the problem. You can't really compare an army chief appointment with a PSU or a bank directorship. People would laugh at that, but you have a prerogative to want to do it. Manish Tiwari, there are many in the media, and certainly many in the army, who are, how shall I put it, suspicious of General VK Singh's motives. They point out that if he succeeds in ensuring that the appointment of the next army chief is not done by this government, but left to the next government, which looks as if it will be BJP led, then he's also, they say, hoping that General Sohag, the senior most, will be superseded. And then the next in line is the Southern Army Commander, General Ashok Singh, who happens to be General VK Singh's Samdi. And that's one reason why people are deeply suspicious of General VK Singh's motives. Do you, as INB Minister, share that suspicion, or is it unfair to bring it to public attention?
Well, I think, Karan, first of all, to again take you back to the very speculative reasoning that you put forth, with regard to the outcome of the polls, I would tend to disagree with that.
Let's not get lost on the outcome of the polls, Manish. That was an aside. Let's stick to the question.
So therefore, I think the aside needs to be answered first.
No, I don't think it does, Manish Tiwari, unless you're deliberately prevaricating like Prakash Javadekar. The question is about suspicions concerning General VK Singh's motivation.
Prevaricating, but I think you're not giving people a chance to even answer your question. I think it would be inappropriate and incorrect, to be attributing motives to any particular individual or to any particular relationship, which may or may not be there, because I am not privy to as to, who's related to whom and who's married to whom and who's not married to whom.
It's in the papers.
So
it's in every paper today. Did you not read the papers this morning?
Well, in the sense that, in the sense there is a lot of stuff in the papers, so therefore, it really depends as to, what you pay attention to first thing in the morning or what you not, but I'm not even getting into that.
Very interesting that a Congress minister is suddenly so sympathetic and understanding of General VK Singh. You weren't like that of General VK Singh earlier. Suddenly, now that he's become a BJP candidate and a fellow politician, you've become understanding, which you weren't when he was just a simple army officer.
We were not non-understanding of him earlier, and neither are we understanding of him today. I think the short point is that the convention process and procedure which needs to be followed in the case of all such appointments, needs to be followed in this particular case to the T, and there must be an attempt to ensure that this is kept above any kind of politicization. I think those are the two short sequiturs to this entire discourse.
General Qadian, you're an army officer. I will add, for the benefit of the audience, you've also stood as an Aam Aadmi Party candidate from Junjunu. But as an army officer, or as an Aam Aadmi Party candidate, I want to put two questions to you. Is it true, as many say, that General VK Singh has been targeting General Sohag ever since General Sohag, it became clear, could be in the line of succession? That first of all, he ordered an inquiry against him. Then he put a ban on his promotion. And finally, in the last week in office, when he was still Army Chief, he took the unprecedented step of giving interviews, running down a serving Lieutenant General. And does that somehow underline the suspicions about his motivation?
Karan, now that it has come in the public domain that if Sohag doesn't make it, the next in line is related to General VK Singh, which even BJP may not have been aware when they made the earlier comments, in all fairness. I think it will be most, in my view, appropriate for General VK Singh to keep away from making any more comments on this. Otherwise, this speculation is bound to arise that he is pushing his personal motive and giving it a cloak of the army's interest, which may not be fair.
As a former defense secretary and an observer of motivation, because that often colors people's opinions, do you think General VK Singh's intervention, given his relationship to Ashok Singh, is wrong and that he should not have taken up this issue?
Yes, I am of the view that he should not have intervened in this matter, especially because of the kind of suspicion that is there about his relationship with the likely successor.
Beneficiary.
So therefore, he would have been better served if he had kept out of this controversy.
My second question. Did the BJP, perhaps unthinkingly, perhaps unwittingly, make a mistake in taking a cue from General VK Singh? Because the sequence is General VK Singh first spoke and then the BJP formally petitioned the Election Commission. Have they erred in trusting him?
I do not know whether BJP was aware of General VK Singh's relationship with Ashok Singh. If they knew, then I think going to the election petition, to the Election Commission with this kind of a petition was probably not well advised.
This is very interesting. So either they've done it in ignorance of the relationship, in which case the corollary is they should have been better informed. And if they were informed and they were aware, then it was ill-advised.
I think so.
Mr. Javadekar, the last word to you. What you're hearing both from the former Deputy Chief and from the former Defence Secretary is that you've either acted in ignorance of General V.K. Singh's motivation, in which case you should have been better informed, or if you were informed, you were very ill-advised to take this further.
In a very highly technical debate, I thought that it was about all appointments which government is making. But when you are discussing only army chief appointment which is being challenged in appeal, and that too election commission for a code of conduct violation, I think it has to be taken in that spirit only. It's not a challenge in the Supreme Court, and therefore what we are saying is, let me make it very clear that the new government or BJP as party doesn't function on whims or beliefs of one person or to accommodate only one person. We have a very sound defense cell which have many experienced people.
I have to stop you there. I have to stop you there, but I'll underline for the audience two important things. When you say you don't function under the opinion of one man, you're clearly but cleverly and subtly distancing yourself from General V.K. Singh. And the second thing you're saying to me is that take it in the spirit of the model code of conduct and election time, which suggests that this is the sort of thing parties do in election time. They don't mean it seriously. It's just a gambit they play. The sad part is you're playing with the appointment of something that for the army at any rate should be sacred and sacrosanct. And unfortunately that sacrosanct character is being lost in party politics. But then I suppose that's what happens in the middle of an election. My thanks to all four of my guests for joining me. And if you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.